Hello, and welcome to League of Women Voters Presents. This year time, we're talking about what's on your ballot, and we have some special guests with us. We have County Commissioner Kevin Barnhart. Welcome, Mr. Barnhart.
Hello, Judith.
And we have Bill Litvin, another member of the League, who's helpful in getting, in all ways, and especially in getting candidates to reply to the questions the League has. So that's his forte. We're going to start talking about the election cycle. So, this is an even numbered year. So what are the things on our ballot, Commissioner? These are...
Well, on the general election, which is Tuesday, November 8th, I'll have to remind people constantly, it's Tuesday, November 8th, we have at the top of the ticket the U.S. Senate race. We have the governor, lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In some districts, there's a state Senate race, depends on what district you would reside in. There are congressional races as well as state representatives. So the 2-year terms obviously are on the ballot, but oftentimes the 4, and they get put on different election cycles. So there's not a lot on the ballot, but they're hugely impactful to us and our future.
Okay, and that's the first list, and those are the lists where we have different districts. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to note first that in the odd number years, we're electing school boards, we're electing municipal officials, and we're electing judges. And that also impacts our everyday life. So
we call it a 4-year election cycle. It starts with the presidential, then a municipal, gubernatorial, municipal, and we believe that all 4 of those are as important as the first or third one, because municipal races, school boards, townships, those sorts of things are as impactful, if not more so, to your daily life.
That's your kids' education.
Exactly right.
And it's who's actually there filling your potholes.
Mm-hmm.
Very basic things that we all care about.
They're most probably the ones you don't see 50 commercials in an hour program on TV.
League is not in favor of those nasty commercials, not in any way, shape, or form. So let's go again. Let's look at those slides on who is on the ballot. We had a slide that had the governor, lieutenant governor, and those are the same for everybody all across the state. And then the next slide is where we have the ones that are different depending on where we live. So let's talk about the representative in Congress, and let's bring up that congressional map that we have. There we go. And now if you can see from that, we're in 3 districts. The one that's more to the west of the state is the 9th. The one more to the right is the 4th, and the one that's the lower part, and that includes Reading, and it's the area Reading's in, that is the 6th. So we brought a new tool we're going to use called Vote. Well, first let's go through the other maps before we go to our new tool, but then we're going to come back to Congress. So let's go to the Senate map, and that shows the new Senate districts. And it's a little hard to see, but one interesting thing about those is this year we elect the even number districts because it's a 4-year term, and 2 years from now the odd number districts. And that 11 that runs right through the middle of Berks County, that's one that's not up this year, but it's a lot of our population base is in that area. So a lot of us aren't voting for senator. And now let's go to the House map. And you can see we're in multiple districts. The ones out to the corners where we're more rural are larger districts. The ones closer to the population centers, there are more districts altogether. So how are you going to know which one you're in? That's the next question. And that's where we bring in Vote 411. And we have a computer here, if everything works, in the studio. So Vote 411, let's go back to that prior slide.
No, wait, whoop.
There you go. You type in your address, you see what's on your ballot, you get information that the candidates themselves supplied, and you can mark your choices and put out a list to take to the polls. So let's use the courthouse address for our first experiment. Now we're on the site with Vote 411.
633
Okay.
Court Street. Reading,
633 Court Street. We're going to type that in. Give us a minute to do that.
Whoops. Whoops.
And that's Reading, PA. 19.
Sorry about my typing here,
601,
people.
19601.
And then we hit, whoops, submit. Where did
Submit.
submit go? Hold it. There it is. Okay, it shows the
It's a voter's
address.
guide, and if you scroll down a little bit, you can see all the races that are there. We know the first three are statewide, but so let's go down. Are we in the congressional one? I've got lights, studio lights in my eyes here.
That's the District 6 for the U.S.
Yes, if we'll highlight that one plus that one.
And
And you can
that's-
see you have the names of the two candidates. In this case, it's Chrissy Houlihan and Guy Shiraki. And you can see they've submitted information, both of them, and you can read about them and their answers to some questions. And Bill's the one who works hard to get them to reply to this. And once they have the link, they put their information, it goes directly to the website. Nobody touches it. So nobody interferes with what the candidate is trying to tell you.
We also have their websites and their
We also
Facebook
have their
pages.
websites and their Facebook pages. And the league did interviews with several of them right here in the BCTV studio. And there's a link at the bottom of that page, I think, Bill, for...
Well, there was before, but I don't see it here. Hold on, I'm looking. No, it's not there. It was on my home computer.
Well, there will be links. Bill will check it out for tomorrow. There will be links to those interviews if you would like to read those interviews.
Shall we try a different address?
Let's try a different address.
Or a different job?
A different district. Do you want to try where the Ag Center is?
Okay. We'll put where the Ag Center is. All I have to do is hit change address.
And I should note while you're getting that done that this website does not retain your address. As soon as you log off, it forgets it completely. So there's no worry that anything's going to happen to your address or your private information, which is a nice fact.
Very user-friendly.
It is that way, yes.
And you can tell I'm not used to this computer, but here we go.
Okay, and you're getting the same information, except when you press on that key for the district, you're in Congressional District 4 now, and,
State Senate
well,
48.
no, go to the 4th District so we can show how, we have different candidates. Here we have Madeline Dean and Christian Nascimento, and both of them also interviewed here at BCTV with the league, and you can see the information.
Oh, hold it, maybe, no.
Did you find the information about them? Well, we'll check that out,
we'll
and
check
it'll
it.
be up there by the time our viewers get to it.
I'm not sure why it would be different here from our home computers. Let's check another, if we can, check another
Okay, well, I'll
race.
let you check that while I talk about, because I didn't see on the one that was in the city of Reading, that they had
There's
ballot
two ballot questions,
Do
right.
you want to talk about those, or do you want me
Two
to?
of the ballot questions relating to the home charter, I think it's just more of an administrative function that they want to make. I think one is requiring one less meeting during a budget cycle. And I believe there's another one, but I don't know, it's more of administrative in nature.
The one is, yeah, they have to have a separate hearing now for their operating budget and their capital budget.
Right.
And they can put those in the same
They can
meeting,
merge
which
them
will make it
together.
more easy,
Right.
especially if people want to go to them. And the second part, let's see, the initiative and referendum process that they had with the charter is being changed to match that in a third-class city code. So they're getting it in line with state law, just to make sure
That's
it's proper.
Technicalities. there.
Technicalities.
I know in Lower Heidelberg Township, there is a question on the ballot for those folks in Lower Heidelberg is whether they are interested in expanding from 3 supervisors to 5.
Yes.
So that's a very interesting one in Lower Heidelberg Township. One of the members in particular believes there should be more representation from the township on the supervisory board.
And the 5 people to do the work rather than 3.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what exactly we had. And I guess there are no other ballot questions anywhere else
Not that
around
we're
the
aware
county
of.
that we need to worry about. Did you find what you were looking for?
No,
We
no.
didn't find it. So we're going to check that out. We'll get,
It might be the browser that this uses. There could be some minor differences. I was surprised not to see it there.
well, we'll make sure that there's no problem with this site and that you can find that information. And link yourselves to those interviews and the websites and everything else to make sure you feel comfortable with your choice of candidate. We're going to talk about the concept of elections. They are a state function, but the counties carry them out.
Yes.
Is that a smooth process?
It can be for the most part, but one of the things we struggle with mightily is the election code of Pennsylvania is dated from 1937, with some variations throughout the many decades since 1937. One is Act 77, which gave us no excuse absentee mail-in ballots, which is still going through some machinations. But it is a struggle for me in today's society and technology that we're still dealing with a document that dates from 1937. And the state, as you had pointed out, they actually oversee elections, but the counties, all 67 counties, administrate and actually run the elections with their support through the portal called the SURE system. And that is actually going through a fundamental change. I think it's past its useful life about 15 years ago. So there are a lot of system upgrades going on with the SURE system. They are implementing it over a 2-year period of time, but that's really where a lot of this data is derived from. It's hosted by the state and obviously updated by the state from information given to that by the various counties. Polling precincts, voter registration files, whether someone has applied for a mail-in ballot, and those sorts of things are all contained on the SURE system. So all in all, they're helpful, but I truly believe they could be much more proactive when it comes to the state and helping the counties administer elections. I, for one, believe we toured facilities in both Delaware and New Jersey to look for proper facilities to house our elections equipment, which all told our elections equipment costs $6 million. So one, to find the most viable, safe place to secure that equipment. And in speaking to the folks in Delaware and New Jersey, they're much more flexible with their election laws and their availability of things. And for example, the state of New Jersey determines what voting system you will use in your county, but guess what? They also pay for it.
Ah,
So isn't that a novel idea, where instead of having 6 or 7 different vendors and 67 different counties and 67 different ways of managing elections, the state of New Jersey has figured out we're going to basically buy and support the county equipment going into those various counties in New Jersey. I just think that's a much more foolproof method, because you hear so much talk about, well, this brand and this software, and we vote on paper, they vote on ballot marking devices. It's really just a real patchwork, and I wish our state would really do a fundamental change of the election code and really get into the 21st century before the 22nd century is here.
and when you have, the counties are all very different sizes. We're
Yes.
a third-class county,
Correct,
which is
based
the
on
largest.
population.
Largest?
Well, Philadelphia is the
and
first
Pittsburgh.
class, Allegheny's 2, and then Montgomery's 2A, and I believe Bucks went to a 2A as well.
Wow.
They have to be over 500,000 people,
and
and it's your option. So
to
Chester and
change it.
Lancaster are over 500,000 population, but they choose to remain a third-class county.
And there are counties that are much, much, much smaller, and they still have the same burden with supplying.
Yes, I
this.
think our smallest county has about 4,000 people.
Yeah, and it's a very different process in each of those places, which leads to voter confusion.
Yes.
Which leads to charges that can be flopped that it's, something's amiss.
Right.
When nothing really is.
I think when it comes to elections, things should be standardized and not pay every man for himself, figure out what you need, because the Stein case drove us to Berks County having to need the ballot marking device type machine, the ballot marking device from ES&S, and then the tabulator. That was something that we had to do by order of the Commonwealth and the governor to go that way, and I'm fine with it, because for 35 years we had the full face ballot machines, which really didn't give you any sort of audit trail. So when you pressed that big green vote key and said vote, other than those discs or those cartridges in those SURE system not SURE system, but the full face machine, you couldn't do any recounts. I
No,
mean,
you really
all you really
couldn't.
had was a detail tape, like a register tape. But now that we have the ballots, we have the ballot cards, and a lot of counties still have the full face ballots, you can actually run those through a separate scanner, a different scanner, and do a ballot recount. So we had the Commonwealth Court last November, and we had the U.S. Senate race in the primary that was down to a recount. So we're able to do that effectively. So thank goodness it actually did happen, because we did those 2 ballot recounts very well.
And what you're talking about, just in case our viewers aren't up on all of this, is the new system. If you're at the polling place, you put in your selections on basically a touch screen.
I call it like the screen you order your sandwich at Wawa.
It's very similar,
Basically,
okay.
yes.
And it prints out a card that tells, and it's basically a paper version of what you voted.
Right.
And you have the opportunity to look at that and make sure it's correct, make sure it's exactly what you wanted, that nothing failed within that machine. So every voter is the first checker of what's going on. And if that's correct, then it goes into a scanning machine
Yes.
to be counted. And as you said, that paper trail is there. So Berks has a very secure system.
Yes.
And it's secure to the point that each individual voter knows that their vote came out right.
We need to emphasize that that card is not your vote. It's what you are selecting. It has to go into the optic scanner, because when we rolled these out in the fall of 2019, some people thought they could walk out the front door.
With that,
the
no,
card.
that's
It has
their-
to go in the optic scanner, that what we call a trash can looking device. It has to go in there, and that's really what tabulates it. And then that card falls into a box, a locked box. And then at the conclusion, those cards are then collected by the judge of elections and then brought back to election services that night.
But we have that paper trail.
Yes.
So that is actually, you've gone to this machine, you've
an
made your
enhancement.
selection, and it
Right.
gives you your ballot, which you then put in the ballot
Correct.
counting machine. So that's how that works, all very safe.
So this is really more secure than it's been.
It's secure,
And auditable.
fundamentally, you can certainly not redo, but do recounts. And, we think that the age has come with at least the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania recounts are kind of going to become commonplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, things are seem to be getting closer.
Yes,
and
and
that-
we're prepared for it.
And I know the County Commissioners Association has lobbied for certain things to change in the language of the bill to
Right.
make things easier.
Act
Well,
77.
Yes, with the one that was recently passed. But before we go into that, let's go back for a minute. A lot of people have bad memories of the 2020 election. And I know some people didn't get ballots timely and all of that. And I think it's important that our viewers understand that this was not because of something happening in Berks County. If you remember, we just had a national census, and it came at the same time as the pandemic. So the census was late, it was delayed, all sorts of things were happening with it. And it's from those census numbers that Berks County needed to, all the states needed to draw up their new voting districts. We ended up with one fewer congressional representatives, so you had to change the districts. And you had to change for basically where population moved. And that started out late and took a long time, and there were court suits.
I think it ended up in the hands of the state Supreme Court, correct?
It did for the
Yes.
congressional maps, yes. There was a redistricting group that did a panel of 5 that had very public hearings. The league liked it. They were very transparent in what they did. And they came up with the House seats.
Yeah, I
And then
believe
I
so.
think the legislature did the Senate seats. So there was something, whatever it was. The point is that it took longer than
Yes.
usual. And then all the printers of ballots all across the country were getting the orders late from their voting districts. So the printers were held up. And that's why things came out late.
Yes,
And there was nothing Berks County could have done anything about any of that.
right.
Do you want to talk about, because with the rollout of the new poll books that we have,
Okay, the electronic poll books, sure.
there were some issues, and everything that happened last year, as I understand it, has been resolved. So maybe
The
you'll talk.
primary.
The primary.
The
Got it,
primary
okay.
this year, yes.
So again, we went to the ES&S electronic systems and software in the fall of 2019, and we used a ballot marking device and the optic scanners. And then we felt that we wanted to move to the next generation, which is the electronic poll books, which we ultimately will be able to eliminate the paper poll books. So in November of last year, we rolled out 5 demos in some of our larger precincts, and they went amazingly well. There were no issues or concerns. We then rolled it out to all 202 precincts in May of this year, and internally we did not upload. There are 5 sticks of information that have to be uploaded into the electronic poll book, which then replaces the paper poll book. And one of those that was not uploaded was the signature verification. So thankfully, we had a backup plan was, okay, rolling these poll books out, 440 of them, out to 202 precincts. So every precinct had at least 2, some had 3. But in the trunks of the rovers' cars, and I'll get to that in a second, were the backup poll books. So 7 o'clock, people start rolling into the precincts, and as you turn the electronic poll book to the voter, when they either use a stylus or their finger to sign Kevin Barnhart, the poll worker would turn it around, and what did not come up on there was a signature verification from the Shure system. So what showed was Kevin Barnhart's signature with the stylus, but not the duplicate from the Shure system to say, okay, you are in fact Kevin Barnhart. Because in the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you're not allowed to ask for ID unless you're a first-time voter in that precinct. So it became a struggle, made a few phone calls and said, look, let's back off of the electronic poll books, let's roll out the paper poll books. And we only had 10 rovers at the time. So conceivably, to get these paper poll books out to the polls was a monumental task. Called the Department of Emergency Services, rolled deputy sheriffs out, rolled other people out from county, just calling people to get them to hustle these books out. One of the points of failure we also had was our communication network was left a lot to be desired. So we've had at least 7 internal meetings on communication. We are rolling out what we think is a first-class communication system going into the November 8th election. I want to thank Brian Gottschall, our Department of Emergency Services Director, and our IT Director, Justin Luce, for pulling together the election team. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to double the number of rovers. We only had 10. We're going to have 20 plus 2 alternates. Now, what the rovers do, they are like what I would call a super judge of elections. They go out to a district of polls, and they make sure systems are working, report back to election services. Do you have enough provisional ballots? Are your systems working? Anything we can do to help. So they're like spot checkers. So we doubled the number of those people. They're going to have a direct line to call to a tracker who has a system designed where when they report into, say, South Heidelberg 2, where I vote, they will go in and check in with the judge of elections and have a laundry list of questions to ask, which will be entered electronically, so we can track any sort of problems. We also have 2 people plus 2 people from ES&S who handle technical questions. By the way, my printer's not working. By the way, my ballot scanner's not working. So they're the technical people. And then we're going to have the number that's listed on our county website as the number where the public will call and the constables will call. That's going to be a call center set up on the 13th floor in the commissioner's boardroom. That's only that segmented phone number. And then we have a special number for the judge of elections, who are then going to call directly to election services and talk to elections workers. So we're basically spreading out the types of calls that come in. Because we track through the IT department, the first hour in May, there were 1,600 phone calls. You can't do that with 8, 10, 12 people. You can't answer 1,600 phone calls. Now, one of the fellows at the judge training told me he called 16 times the first hour. I said, no wonder they didn't pick up the phone because you called 16 times. But there was so much frustration.
Oh, of course there were.
At the polls, by the voters, by the election staff, and we are making monumental efforts and great strides, not just with the electronic poll books, but with the communication system that we want to make it very robust. So we had 4 individual trainings of electronic poll books in the fall. We've had another 6 this fall. Total of 31 training classes, judge of elections, machine inspectors, and there actually are 1,900 seats available. So we have overextended ourselves. If you want to come to 1 training, that's fine. You want to come to 2 trainings, you want to come to 3 trainings, you're working out in the field, we want you to be overly trained because we want this to work. We're embarrassed by what happened, but we have made corrective efforts with that. We have much more bandwidth and staff available, working to get the machines set up and delivered out to the polls, the ballot marking device, the optic scanners, as well as the electronic poll book. So we are very confident that November 8th is going to be a real good election for Berks County.
Is there a way for you to for the election services people to communicate out to the workers?
Yes, they all have
Like a mass type
they-
thing?
Okay, thank you for bringing it up. So we're going to have a mass texting
Okay.
ability. Each judge of elections has a flip phone, but we have their flip phone number because there are phones. So
Okay.
part of the training is you will have your phone out. You will have it on the counter because if we text you and say, Mayday, Mayday, something's happening, everyone gets the alert. We're also capturing as many personal phone numbers as they want to give us so that if there's 5 people working the polls, maybe 3 of their phones ring or 4 of their phones ring and say, by the way, here's a special alert. That's also being worked on and has been completed through Brian Gottschall at the Department of Emergency Services. So what happened, but I think it was one of those lessons in life where you say, we got to pull ourselves back up our bootstraps, figure out where our points of failure are, and there were numerous points of failure, and we're making every effort possible to solve those problems.
So we should have a smoother,
Yes.
something, if there is something that can go wrong, something will, but hopefully nothing that impacts the
Yes,
election.
but I think we have enough robust system and we have it set up that if there is something that could happen, that could be detrimental, we've got enough bandwidth to handle it and enough communications to handle it. So we're going to do that, and we're going to grow from that. There are other enhancements we'd like to do, but we're kind of running out of time, and the focus of the communication team is we're planning bigger and better for the presidential and just build up. Maybe we'll have 30 rovers. Maybe we'll have more people on the phones because you're going to go from a gubernatorial race, which your turnout is maybe half of what you're going to have in a presidential. So what does that mean? We have to double the number of people. So we want to make sure the phones that are ringing are answered. We want to make sure people get the responses they need.
And one of the things, I mean, with that increased turnout, yes, you are going to need more help, but you have 2 years to plan.
Yes.
And one of the things we asked the candidates who are running for the State House and State Senate is if they're going to consider election legislation, would they first spend a day working in an elections office so they'd understand what the process was before they pass a bill?
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
they were
Thank you.
pretty much, I
They're
think
very
everybody.
positive about being willing to do it.
Yeah, they understood that you
Right.
can't just pass it in a void without knowing how the system works in a county the size of Berks. We even had, Bill
Right.
asked several, would you do it in 2 different counties, maybe one more urban, one more rural? So they have
Sure.
an understanding how different the state is.
Right, so Act 77 was passed into law, and we accepted it. And as you pointed out earlier, Judith, that CCAP, the County Commissioners Association, has been advocating strongly and loudly since the inception of Act 77, give us more time to pre-canvass, to get ready for the scanning of the mail-in and absentee ballots. They've refused to do that. And we also say, why can't you marry up the day to apply for a mail-in or absentee ballot the same date as the applying to be registered to vote? Give us that.
Extra
Give
time.
us 2 little things. It's all we've asked for. We didn't ask you to repeal the law. We didn't ask you to throw it away because it works for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I just sent mine into the mailbox before we got here. Because for me, it's one less thing I have to be concerned about come election day and say, uh-oh, somehow, some way I have to get out to my poll. I could be knees deep in a situation in election services and go, I can't get out there. So for me, it's a matter of convenience. And I really appreciate
for people who
it.
are older, it's
Sure.
a huge help.
It's amazing.
And when
Yeah.
I hear people say they want to do away with it, I think, what have they got against older people? That's
We
not
just want
right.
them to fine tune it. So then
Yeah.
this year, they gave us Act 88, which is now provided up to $45 million for all the counties. So Berks County applied for and received $1.3 million based on registered voters. So it covers the period of time from the general November 8th and the primary of next year, and we can apply each August and receive the money in September, it can pay for just about everything. Overtime, poll workers, ballots, machinery, technology, the sky's the limit, okay? We appreciate it. The kicker is that once you start to tabulate the votes at 7 o'clock on Tuesday morning, you can't stop. So instead of giving us pre-canvassing, say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we can scan everything in Tuesday and be done. We have to have a second crew come in at 8 o'clock at night, separate and apart from the first shift, and not stop processing the ballots. So whatever we get
You
in
may
on
need
Tuesday.
a third and fourth shift, depending.
So whatever the mail delivery delivers on Tuesday, whatever is in the drop box is Tuesday, whatever's delivered to Election Services Tuesday, we have to open, audit, and scan until it's done. Now the problem was we did our level best to get the majority of our ballots in that we had. There were some counties that waited and said, well, we'll do that Thursday, maybe we'll do it Friday. And the problem is when candidates and parties are looking at their vote totals, and they look at Tuesday night and they go to bed, and then Wednesday afternoon they see another 4,000 votes come in, they go, where'd they come from? And then Thursday they say, where'd those 6,000 votes come? It starts to cause skepticism. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but as we speak, if they work for a couple days in election services, think, where do you find the people? Where do you draw on people that came in
And
at
people don't do as well when they're tired as
Right.
they do when they're fresh.
Election workers come in at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you want them to stay around the clock. So what we did is we're grateful that we have off Election Day. The county
The county
has off.
employees have off, yes.
So we pull in non-court related employees to work, similar to poll workers. So it's their day off. They get paid for the holiday. They come in and they get paid like a poll worker, and they help us do this. So we're going to have 50 people doing canvassing and scanning during the day, and an additional 10 at night
Okay,
until we can finish.
I want to go back because
Sure.
I'm not sure what that canvassing does. So you get my mail-in ballot, and we're going to talk about that in a bit more.
So we take it in, we verify through the barcode that your ballot came in. Then we audit that list of people in your precinct, make sure they all came in because you applied for one. We make sure that your ballot came in, and then we put it in a tray, Spring Township, whatever
Yeah,
district. And then but what gets loaded into the electronic poll book at the end is when you go to the polls, it's either green, yellow, or red. So if it's green, you can vote at the polls. If it's yellow, that means that your ballot may still be floating out there, that the election services didn't get your ballot in yet. If it's red, that means we have your ballot. So guess what you're not doing? You're not voting at the polls.
Right.
So the yellow one is a message that says something has to be corrected here. If you walk in and say, here's my mail-in ballot, I didn't open it up, but I want to vote on the machine, judge takes that, you fill out an affidavit, then you can vote on the machine. So this eliminates the ability for somebody to try to vote twice. Worst case scenario, you pitch a complaint, say, I don't care what you say, I didn't get this ballot, it was, we'll allow you to vote on a piece of paper, a provisional ballot. But what gets checked those days after the election is, did Judith in fact vote on the machine? Because we have a provisional for her in the same precinct. She voted on the machine, she can't vote on this doesn't get counted.
And the first place you voted would be the one that counted, which
Exactly.
is the machine or the paper
Yes.
ballot that arrived already, and then I didn't remember, which can happen.
Right, and what I've tried to emphasize to people from the very beginning, if you applied for mail-in or absentee ballot, please do me a favor. Fill it out, mail it, drop it off, use it, because what this does is cause additional time delay, because now we've got to cross-reference whether Judith got this ballot, what did she do with it, here's her provisional, did she vote on the machine? It just causes all of this complexity that's not necessary. So mine went in the mail, it's going to get scanned in, I try to go to the polls, I come up red.
They know you've
That's
already
it.
voted.
They know I already voted.
Tell me about, because there's a big thing about you must sign, well, first of all, you get the absentee or the mail-in ballot, you fill in the boxes, you don't just put a check mark, you fill in the whole box.
Yeah, they're
You
small
fold it
ovals.
up, you put it in the secrecy envelope,
Yeah,
and
that's
that
very
protects
important.
it.
Yes.
And then you put it in the mail-back envelope, And there's a space where you're supposed to sign and date.
Yes.
Do you actually check that that
Yes.
signature matches?
Yeah, it's a signature match with the Sure system. So when you're scanned in election services, they will scan you in and they'll bring you up in the Sure system and go, well, that's Kevin Barnhart's signature. That's his K, that's his B, that's his S, that's his, he signed it.
So every mail-in ballot has the same test that it goes through as when
Correct.
you sign in at the polling
That is
place.
correct, yes.
And I would, being up to date, the state gave guidance that the date that I'm signing when I do my mail-in is immaterial, because you know when you send it out, you know you got it back before the election, so it really shouldn't matter. But I understand the Supreme Court said that that one case where that happened cannot be used for other determination.
In Lehigh County.
The Lehigh
Right,
County one
right.
for a judge seat, that doesn't apply to anybody else. So we don't know yet how that's going to play out. So for all those voters who are going for the mail-in ballot, make sure you sign that outer envelope and you date that outer envelope before you send it in. Let's go back and talk about how people get registered and get that mail-in ballot. Could we have our slide number 7 on the votepa.gov? And this is the one that is the state-run part of the Sure system. And you can go there to register, you can change your address, you can change your party, and you can apply for a mail-in ballot. It is an easy-to-use site. And if you apply for the mail-in ballot on that site, the information goes to our county office, which will send you the ballot. But the system will also track, and they will tell you when it's been mailed to you. And when you send it back, they will tell you if the county received it.
Right.
So you can
Make sure you give them your email address.
Oh, yes,
Right.
you have to
Yes.
give them your email address for that to work.
It works.
Yes,
But there's never quite enough room to fit your email address into the space they give you.
wanna give
So
it
that's always a bit of a
And
challenge.
just while make sure you know the deadline is November 1st to apply for a mail-in or absentee ballot.
we've got all those deadlines
Good,
coming up on
great,
our last
great.
slide, so we can.
Time is getting,
Tempest is fugiting.
there you go.
Let's look at slide number 8 while we've got, going back. Oh, that's where you can check whether it was completed and check that it was received by Berks County. So that's all good. You can really keep tabs on it, which is very
Let me
nice.
just point something out. So
Sure.
the mailing house dropped the first batch, which was about 23,000 ballots on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I received mine today, and Monday was a mail holiday. That's not pretty bad.
That's
not
good.
too, that's not bad.
No, that's
So
not bad at
we anticipate everyone who was in that first batch will be delivered this week, and then there are some smaller batches that come through that the printer will still do. And then when we get closer to the date, then those ballots themselves will be printed and mailed out of election services. But please, if you're interested, if you have a desire to do a mail-in ballot, do it now. Again, it takes the pressure off the back end of the whole process, and we can
Sure.
get our election results when everyone expects them, like 8:01, people expect the election results. Anything you can do to mitigate the time delays, and don't wait till the last minute to register, don't wait till the last minute to apply, those things. It just helps the whole process.
It does help the whole process. And I'm going to note for those people who are expecting answers, the election results
Mm-hmm.
at 8:01, the military ballots aren't due until a week
Yes.
after the election. And if we have a lot of military serving overseas, that could change an election even after
is
we've
absolutely
announced
correct.
totals.
So that means that your county workers have to stay until all the military ballots are counted?
No, it's basically, right, it's basically.
I mean, why,
mail-in
how can they
absentees.
get away with, you
Right.
know?
I want to bring
98%, I guess.
I want to bring up slide 9 because that has some important information for our voters. County of Berks Election Services, you said there are 8 people in the office?
We actually now have, we have a complement of 18, we have 14 or 15, we have another one starting tomorrow, so we have 15 out of 18.
Ah, and
How's that?
you're hiring more.
We continue to expand because we know it's vitally important, but finding people who have the ability and interest in work in election services is a challenge.
But it's a very stressful job.
It's very stressful and very tedious, and it takes the right caliber person to work
do
there.
that. But the staff there is bilingual for a
We have
good number, 4
four
bilingual
that are
people.
bilingual, yes.
And if you have a problem as a viewer that none of these other sites seems to be helping you with, call them, email them. They are there to help you. You are paying their salaries through your local taxes, and their job is to help you. And they are very good at doing that, and they're very accommodating for whatever your issue is. They will find a way through. League has been very impressed working with them, how
Thank you.
cooperative and helpful they are. And a lot of people who are upset with whatever happened in the election, taking it out on election services people, and that's just so wrong.
Right.
They're there, and they're doing their very best under very trying circumstances sometimes, and in a huge rush with huge piles of mail.
Right.
And we need to treat them as we want to be
Thank you
treated
for
as human
saying that.
beings. I think that's important. Let's go to our slide 10. I had something here about polling places. At the polling place. This is where we're going to see that the election day, again, a reminder, Tuesday the 8th, the polls are open from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. You will be using an electronic poll book. Oh, and that's where I wanted to mention, on that Election Services website, I don't think we had that number up there, but if you go to countyofberks.com, the Department of Election Services, when you go there, on their front page, you can see a video that explains how to use the electronic poll book.
Thank you.
Very easy, and it's in Spanish as well as English, right?
We have those videos for the general population of voters, and we also have videos for poll workers. So they go to training. Maybe they went to training a month ago, and it's Saturday. They picked up their equipment. They go home and they go, "I need a refresher." Well, we gave them books, training manuals, but we also gave them the ability to view a video that's designed for the poll workers, just to refresh themselves over that weekend before they go out and get things set up on Monday and get rolling on Tuesday.
And there's also a video there for how to use the voting machines. So, that's all extremely useful. I found one at the vote.pa.gov site that goes through the whole process of doing the mail-in ballot, makes it very clear. So that's available to viewers. Could we take up that slide, because I couldn't remember the last point that we had it on it. Oh, the bit about the paper ballot. We did that already, so yes, we're good. So now let's look at slide 11, which is on the mail-in ballot. You have 2 Dropbox locations.
Yes.
You are going to have a third.
We had intended to have a third at what we call the South Campus in Moton. We anticipated there was a thought process to move elections staff to the South Campus. That did not occur. So hence, we're not going to have a box there because we don't have the manpower, the capability of monitoring the box. So the fallback plan is to go back to the original 2 we've had since the beginning at the Ag Center and the Courthouse, Services Center, actually. So
Yes,
Is there
the
still
Center.
construction on the roads by the
now-
Ag Center?
the bridge is reopened.
Okay.
But UGI is laying a massive gas line on the north side of County Welfare Road, but there's a flagger there.
Okay.
So it's not a bridge out kind of thing, there's a flagger there. And I've been up there a dozen times since they've been working, and it's a minute or so delay till they wave you through.
I got to see interesting parts of the county that I'd never been in before when I went to the Ag Center.
Beautiful county, isn't it?
It is a beautiful
Always.
county. That's a beautiful area. Good hiking up there.
Yes.
Yeah, the county, this county has wonderful parks, whether they're township or county parks.
That's another thing we learned. Hey, maybe next time we designate a drop box and we make sure there's no road detours. But that's one.
That would be smart.
Another thing we learned the hard way.
I'm just going to note for our viewers that if you have the mail-in ballot and you want to drop it in a mailbox, that's fine, as long as there are at least 7 days for there to get there.
It's postage paid.
And it's postage paid this time, which is really cool.
Yay.
But you allow ample time. If there's not that amount of time, you're better off taking it to a drop box. Now, I hadn't seen hours for the drop boxes yet. Have we set the hours the same as they were in May? Oh, now
Yes,
one of those pieces of paper you bought
it
is-
was, I believe it's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then Saturday prior to the election, and we actually are expanding it to Sunday.
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
So we're going to be open on Sunday, which we weren't before, and then Monday, I think, is till 8 o'clock at night, and then on election day, it's 7 in the morning till 8 at night, which
Same as the
mirrors
polls.
the polls, right? So Ag Center, County Welfare Road, County Services Center, and I know I should have put that one on the top. I had the hours of operation, but they are similar to
Well,
the
if you'll
prior
get them to
elections.
me, I'll get them up on the league
Okay.
website.
All right,
And that's a good place for people to go, or,
I'll find it before the show's over.
okay.
And that starts on the Monday of the 24th.
The 24th is when that's starting. So that's good news. We can all get our ballots there. Now, the one thing that I saw from a recent election board meeting that I wanted to talk about was, what does it mean when they talk about curing a ballot?
Okay, so ballot curing is the outer envelope that you mail the mail-in absentee ballot back to election services. That's curing, is the signature and the date. So if I didn't date it or I didn't put my signature on, that's called curing. So again, Act 77, a little murky in the language. Some counties in the Commonwealth actually called you. Some actually sent them back to you and highlighted the error. And some waited at Berks County. If you called in and said, I think I forgot to put my signature on the envelope, then you can come in and say, I'm Kevin Barnhart. I think I forgot to put my signature on the envelope.
And they would find
they would,
find it for you?
it's audited, it's in the tray, South Heidelberg too. They pull it out and say, oh, as a matter of fact, yeah, okay, there you go. You sign it. But again, 67 different ways to run an election. I think I pointed out earlier about the machines and everything. It's like really, there has to be some standard practice across the Commonwealth to make it fair and equitable to everyone. And I, for one, felt that we should make an effort. The Democratic Party in particular requested that they could come in and support that effort, that if a person needed to cure their ballot, they would notify them, I guess by phone, to come in and do the ballot curing. So that didn't happen.
So if anything's wrong, it's going to stick because
Yeah,
you didn't have
please
the votes for
take
it.
your time, make sure you fill everything out. There's an instruction form in there. Go over the instruction form several different times, maybe with a loved one. Just double check the information on that you're doing everything correctly, because if you don't, then your vote probably will not count unless there's another change to the law or another appeal, or, that's the fluidity of elections anymore. It's things change every day when there's a court hearing on an appeal, and this goes to this court, goes to a circuit court, gets kicked back, goes to the Supreme Court. And that's really part and parcel of the inception of Act 77, why the state lost over 30 elections directors who just finally said, I'm retiring, I'm getting out of here, because I can't deal with this coming in every day with a different rule or regulations. It wore on people to the point where they said, we just had enough.
And I think League is going to be lobbying that anything new the legislature does should be set up to take effect 2 years hence. So there is time to find all the places that aren't going to work with any
Correct.
different election system, that it shouldn't be done in the few months before an election, because it's just too much pressure and it doesn't come off uniformly that way. As you said, the standard isn't there.
Act 77 was passed for a political advantage for either major party. It wasn't done for the easement or benefit of election service workers, or it certainly did make things easier for the voter.
Yes.
But it really was more of a bipartisan, hey, you get something, I get something out of it. And that's poorly crafted law, as far as I'm concerned. When you're here at the county level administering an election, you go, man, if I had something to say about that, I would have done this. But
Well, and that would have been it was good during the
Right.
pandemic. It was helpful during the pandemic.
was very helpful, yes.
But it wasn't well thought out. They should have taken it county to county to say, okay, what needs to fix here
Right.
before you pass the legislation. Yeah, it's like a business not evaluating what its current processes are before they put in new ones. It wouldn't
Right.
happen in a business.
they wonder why the customers left, right?
We're going to talk just a couple minutes about the counting of the ballots, and I know a lot of people are sometimes concerned, well, this information can be hacked, it can be something, but there's no way to hack because we're not online. Is that
No, absolutely
correct?
not. The systems out at the polls at the 202 precincts have no connection to the internet whatsoever. No how, no way. Some people speculated wrongly that the two electronic poll books have a router. It's a small device about this big with wires connected to 2 poll books, and all that really does is connect that poll book with that poll book so that Kevin Barnhart comes in at 9 o'clock and Kevin Barnhart comes in at 3 o'clock. It already said you can't vote on that because you already signed in over here. It's a fail-safe method to make sure Kevin Barnhart can't vote twice. That's the only purpose of the router, to connect those 2 electronic poll books. At the other level, at the tabulation, when we take the mail-in and absentee ballots and optic scan them, there's no connection whatsoever to the internet at all. The data gets collected into a stick or a flash drive, and that's where the data is stored, similar to the electronic tabulators at the polls. It goes into a stick, Judge of Elections puts it in a bag, locks it, brings it into Election Services, that gets uploaded into the total. So what we try to do after 8 o'clock is to load the stick from the precinct with the stick from, and marry that up with the stick from the tabulation of the mail-in and absentee ballots. So when people are sitting at home at 10 o'clock and they go, I wonder how they're voting in Lower Heidelberg Township on that ballot question, they're not speculating whether that's the precinct and the mail-in absentees. We try to marry them together so we have an accurate vote total.
And that could delay some of your totals if you're getting in late ones for certain
Right.
precincts.
So
but-
what we hope to do now with the Act 88 is you'll see the bulk of those in as time goes past 8 o'clock, and then you'll see them probably trickle in. They want us to have as much counted by midnight as humanly possible of the absentee and mail-in ballots. If they drift into 1 or 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, that's okay as long as we continue to count. Because what they don't want is that all of a sudden the next day or 2 days later there's a couple thousand votes and they want to know where they came from.
Yeah. And
I
can
kind
understand-
of, I can't blame them.
I can't either,
Right.
but it's good you've got a big enough county workforce that you can
Right.
find a second and maybe if you needed a third shift. That's it. Let's talk about why it's so important that every eligible citizen vote. And I do want to mention, ran into someone at a flea market who said he can't vote because he was served time for a crime. But he can. Felons, once they're out of prison, can vote. If you're on house arrest, you can vote. If you're waiting trial and you haven't been tried yet, you can register, you can vote. And that's right there on that votepa.gov website, that we don't rule out anyone who's a citizen unless they are currently incarcerated for a crime. If you're
Correct.
in prison for a crime, you're not voting. But if you're in prison and you're going to be released before the election, you can do your registration, and then on the election day you can vote. So they're not excluded. People who are 17 and 7/8 are not excluded as long as they're 18 by the election day.
Okay.
And you can register now. As long as you're 18 by election day, you're good to vote. So everybody can. And why should it be important?
I think for many years people would say, well, my vote doesn't count. And I can assure you that we had recounts in these last 2 elections. Don't tell me your vote doesn't count. When you come down to the bare minimum between 2 U.S. Senate candidates or Commonwealth Court candidates are much the same in the local races, where it comes down to 2, 3, 4 votes. Your vote really truly counts. And from the local level to the county level to the state and federal level, your voice and your input really counts on policy and enacting of laws, and you have to have a voice. Maybe you don't send a letter to your congressman or call them or write them or call me or write to me, but your voice needs to be heard because you want those people to represent you in the best interest of what you believe in, whichever party you're affiliated with. That's your belief, and that's how you want people to enact laws to improve the lot of everyone's daily life, from the snow removal in the borough to tree removal in a township to enacting laws at the state level to the national level.
Taxes
Absolutely.
on all
School
levels.
boards. I mean, day doesn't go by where people say, I can't believe the high cost of my school taxes. Well, do something about it. Vote. Or better yet, maybe you run for office.
This is true.
And you see how things actually operate. I think it's incumbent upon people, if they're interested in local government, to get involved, because it's not as easy as it looks on the surface. When, for example, school boards, I think their hands are tied for the most part. Probably 90% of their budget is set in stone, and they only have flexibility with about 5 or 10% of that. And same thing with the county. So much of what we do is state mandated, federal mandated programming that we do on behalf of the federal and state government. There's only so much wiggle room the county has with your tax dollars, but we certainly manage that piece as best as we possibly can. So get involved. If you don't want to get involved in local government, that's fine too, but I think you get involved in voting, it also makes you feel good.
It's
That
a
when you're at the-
responsibility as well as a right.
You're at church, you're at the grocery store, you're at wherever, and you say, hey, I voted, I have an opinion. I think your opinion's well valued too when you say, I researched the candidates on 411. I know who I'm going to vote for, and here's the reason why I'm going to vote for that person, because they have my beliefs, my values, and I think they're going to do a good job. Research, do your homework, be a real active citizen. And I think it's really, to me, voting is akin to jury duty and things like that, where, step up and do what you need to do to help your community.
Yeah, and it does help the community. We have all the slide with all the deadlines on it, and we want to get that up before we close out. So you have to register to vote by October 24th. As the commissioner said, if you want a mail-in ballot, you must apply by November 1st. And as Bill has said many times in this very same studio, do it now. Don't wait till the last minute. Do it right away. Get it done. Get it over. You'll be glad you did.
Amen.
And if you have one of those mail-ins, it must be back to the county by 8 p.m. on election night. You can do that by using the U.S. Post if there's time. You can use it with the drop box. In an emergency, you can bring it by the County Services Center and hand it there. And our drop boxes are guarded again this year by the Sheriff's Department?
They are monitored by deputy
Monitored.
sheriffs. Yes.
They're monitored.
They've done a phenomenal job
They
of
have.
just making sure that people are depositing their ballot, and if there's any
That's right.
there
You can
hasn't been an
only
issue,
take
knock on
you
wood.
can only take
You
your
can
own
only take
ballot.
yours unless you have an affidavit from the person that might be in the car. Maybe your wife can't get out of the car. She needs to sign the form in order for you to drop it in the drop box along with yours or his. Or we've had numerous ones like that. They pull up to the front of the Ag Center. My wife can't get out of the car. Deputy Sheriff will come out and help.
Yeah.
Here's a
They
form.
did. I've seen that
So, yeah.
happen.
So,
but we are
yeah.
at our limit for our time
I
tonight.
just think it's great that they're out there supporting us.
I do too.
I did find the Burke's interviews now, but it's probably too late, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's time for us to thank you,
there you go.
Commissioner Barnhart.
There it is, right there.
And
There you are.
time to say good night, and voters, we'll see you at the polling.